don't want to leave the letters where they may be lost. So if you have letters for me and you can't come up because the meeting has started, Seth or Nivy can collect the letters for me, okay? Because I have a few here. So you can either give it to Seth at the front of the room when you come up, or to Nivy. All right? We're good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
School committee to order at 6:36 tonight. And as we have a remote participant, we will have roll call attendance. Jennifer?
Here.
Bridget?
Here.
Deb?
Here.
Irv?
Here.
Anna?
Here.
Sarah?
Here.
William?
Here.
Sarah Vest present. And Tim?
Here.
Thank you. Okay, so our first order of business is public comment. We did receive some written comments which have already been attached to our agenda for the evening. We did not receive any phone call, so I don't have any of those to play. But I wanted to say for tonight, I wanted to start by saying thank you all for coming out tonight and showing support for our students. I know there are a lot of big feelings happening right now, and I want to recognize that. And as for the school committee, our purview is over policies of the district. Tonight, we are here to listen to your comments and consider which of our policies need revisions and if there are new policies that need to be created. Excuse me. Our job is to create policies that encourage and support our superintendent to create the procedures and guidelines that create a district that is student-centered educational system where students are able to learn, grow, and thrive as their most authentic selves. Tonight, as a reminder for public comment, each speaker will have a timed 3 minutes to make their remarks. Please state your name and your affiliation with the district. If you are reading your public comment, please feel free to share it with me so it can be attached to our meeting. Naibi, do you have whomever was first? Thank you. Thanks, Sally.
This is a statement from the LGBTQIA+ caucus of Amherst. The LGBTQIA+ Caucus of Amherst formed to address the district's failure to protect queer and trans students and hold those harming them accountable. When the staff who harmed students and the administrators who allowed it and then tried to deny it were replaced, we were relieved. To be facing a situation where one of the people most responsible for egregious harm is reinstated is devastating and unacceptable. We need transparency. How could this possibly have happened? How do you plan to protect students in the months and years ahead? According to the investigative report released by the district, Dykes repeatedly misgendered and dead-named students and held prayer circles in a school building where she said, and I quote, "In the name of Jesus, we pray that the LGBTQ gay demon that wants to attach and confuse these kids to school, to leave this school now." It is our position that no employee who committed these offenses should be allowed anywhere near students ever again. And yet, in the determination of responsibility following the report, the prior administration claimed that Dykes' actions did not deny any student access to the district's educational programs or activities, and this document was signed by the current high school principal. We need administrators to understand that homophobic and transphobic harassment impacts a student's entire school experience and can have life-threatening consequences. Delinda Dykes' training as a counselor should make it clear even to her that she cannot return to ARPS without causing more harm. There's no amount of management of her presence that will make it safe or acceptable. The caucus calls upon her to recognize that and not return. To the administration and school committee, if there were not policies and procedures in place to prevent this from happening, there should have been. While we recognize that not all of you held leadership positions when this problem started, you're now the only people with the power to fix it. To the parents who feel afraid and powerless to protect your children, we urge you to use your voices to advocate. Homophobia and transphobia are unhealthy and unsafe for all students, regardless of their gender or sexual orientation, and it cannot be only the parents of trans or queer students who show up for the work ahead. We encourage all ARPS parents who find the actions described in the district's investigative report unacceptable to send a letter to the district stating that Delinda Dykes is to have no contact with or access to your child. There's a template for the letter available, and we will submit those comments in a letter to the Indy and attach a QR code. To the students who feel unheard and unprotected, the caucus wants you to know that you're not alone. What has happened here is not okay, and we will do everything in our power to stop it from happening again. You have more power than you may realize, and you deserve to be respected for who you are. If you are ever in a position where you feel unsafe or unprotected, leave. Find an adult you can trust and tell them you are unwilling to remain in that space. And finally, it is the responsibility of every person in this district and in the broader community to find a way to stop making children suffer for the consequences of adult failures. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Pfeiffer.
Hello, my name is Pfeiffer and I am non-binary. I have been asked to read this statement for a current ARHS student. Hello, my name is Allison Miller and I am a rising 11th grader at Amherst Regional High School. Previously, I attended Amherst Regional Middle School. This is my 8th grade year. Miss Dykes was my guidance counselor, and during this time, most interactions I had with her made me uncomfortable. Close to the first time I spoke with her, she asked me if I was religious, and I responded by telling her that presently I am not, but my family grew up religious. After that, every Monday she would ask me if I had gone back to church this weekend, saying that church would do me some good. During lunch on another day, she handed out chocolate crosses to certain students. In addition to all of this, she made the process of getting my 504 incredibly difficult because she would not answer any of our emails. I believe we had to send about 6 emails only for the vice principal to be the one to contact us to apologize for Miss Dykes' lack of communication and to set up a meeting about a 504. During both of my yearly 504 meetings, Ms. Dykes failed to ask me if I felt that I was at risk of being bullied, when my answer would have been yes. At the time, I did not realize that this was a part of the standard report until my freshman year 504 meeting. My experience with Delinda Dykes was not nearly as traumatic as many other students in my year, especially when it comes to trans students. As a queer trans person, I did not feel safe around Ms. Dykes, and that feeling was not unique. I am highly concerned with the possibility of her being rehired because she has a very negative impact on the queer students at the middle school, i.e. forcing religious conversation onto students, pressuring church attendance and conversation, chronic misgendering and dead naming trans students, and much more. I have very little to no fond memories of the middle school, and Ms. Dykes was a large contributing factor to the middle school culture. Thank you for your time. Allison Miller.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Good evening. My name is Andrew Wenkith. I am currently employed by ARPS, but I speak tonight only as a private citizen. I'm a transgender person, as well as the parent of 3 young children, and like Ms. Dykes, I'm a person of deep faith. Unitarian Universalism is a non-creedal faith that is formed on covenant, on sacred promises that themselves create a container through which we build and sustain relationship. The first of those promises is to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And the second is justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. When we teach these tenets to our children, we simplify the language. Every person is important, and be kind in all you do. The difference here between my expression of my faith and how Ms. Dykes has chosen to live her faith is that no part of my faith or expression thereof seeks to limit the rights of individuals in how they express their own identity in a public setting, which includes the public school system. The deplorable comments from Ms. Dykes tell students that her religious convictions are more important than their own physical and mental safety. The idea that she will be allowed to go back to working with and telling students that they are not valued for who they know themselves to be is actively detrimental to their ability to live and learn in Amherst. I plead that the district make it very clear to all employees that they are expected to follow all aspects of the Fair Educational Practices Act, even if they personally do not agree with them. I further ask that you not allow intimidation tactics from an increasingly emboldened far right to cloud your judgment from protecting transgender youth now or in the future. In times like this, I often ask myself how I want my ancestors of conscience to think about my actions. But even more than that, I ask how I want those who come after me to look back on those deeds and words. And so I end with a quote from Seacon. The more I study history, the more I seem to find that in every generation there are times, just like that time, when folks like you and me, who thought that we were all alone within this honored movement, found a home. Be on the right side of history in this honored movement. I yield the remainder of my time.
Thank you.
Emmett?
Hello, my name is Emmett Troxel. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the Director of Technology at the Trevor Project, which is the leading suicide prevention hotline for LGBTQ+ youth. In the time that I'm speaking here, 4 LGBTQ+ young people will attempt suicide in the United States. I'm going to repeat that. 4 LGBTQ+ young people will attempt suicide in the United States. By the time this meeting is over, that number will be 80. In addition to being someone who works at the Trevor Project, I'm also a trans man who used to be a queer young person who grew up in a religious household. When I was in the 8th grade, my church tried to cast the demons of homosexuality out of me. The next day, I attempted suicide. I lived, obviously. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. Just one supportive adult in a young person's life reduces the risk of suicide from LGBTQ+ young people by 30%. And so if this person is reinstated and allowed to deal with young people, talk to young people, it is not if, it is when a child will be hurt, and how many. I implore you as people in charge of this district to take the actions that you need to ensure that no educator, and specifically this person, is never allowed to deal with the young people in this district. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elle Vandermark. I am a lesbian and proud educator at Connecticut State Community College. I am here tonight to speak on behalf of queer students everywhere. As a young woman growing up in a remote Alaskan town, I knew I was different, but I did not have words or names for being a lesbian. As a result, I did not have support at my schools. I recognize you are bound by arbitration of the collective bargaining agreement. However, students must also be protected from hate through policy and practice, and that should also be codified in the CBA. I hope you will also recognize that all students deserve dignity, respect, and protection. Queer and trans students are no exception. In fact, they are more vulnerable and need the support of the faculty, staff, and administrators at their institutions of learning. They should not be subject to indignity or disrespect by employees at their schools. If arbitration demands Dykes be reinstated, then it must be in a capacity and position where she has no access to any student ever. Trans kids belong here. Queer kids belong here. They should be safe at their schools. All students, faculty, staff, and community members are counting on you to act with integrity and ethical fortitude. Is this a safe zone? The sticker on the door of the library says it is, but Dykes' reinstatement says otherwise. I am here tonight asking you to prioritize the health and well-being of queer students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Emily?
I would like to ask, if you are reading your statement, that if you don't mind sharing it, then we don't have to try and shorten your words and take notes on them. We can just use your words as they are. You can email them to the regional school committee, or you can email them to me directly at kennys@arps.org.
If I walk away with it, remind me, I'll give it to you.
Also fine. You can hand
Thank
it to
you.
me, and I will make it happen.
Is email easier? Okay.
Thank you. Sorry for that.
My name is Emily Pfeiffer. I had a child in Amherst schools. I'm going to quote some statistics. The source for all of them is the 2024 U.S. National Survey on Mental Health of LGBTQ+ young people, as reported by the Trevor Project. And a content warning, I'm going to mention the topic of suicide a number of times. If anyone needs it, the Trevor Project's website offers a confidential crisis hotline by both text and phone. We're in a very frightening time for LGBTQ+ people. Teenagers who identify as LGBTQIA+ and who experienced bullying of any kind reported 3 times the rate of attempting suicide as those who were not bullied. Willfully misgendering is bullying. LGBTQIA+ young people who were subjected to conversion therapy or just threatened with conversion therapy were 3 times as likely to attempt suicide than those who were not threatened with or subjected to it. An adult or authority figure who makes it known that gayness is something that students should be cured of by God is causing harm. How tragic for this bullying and harm to come from a counselor, from someone who should be a bastion of support and caring during a delicate time in any student's life, whether or not they're a member of the LGBTQIA+ community. On the other hand, transgender and non-binary students who found their school to be gender affirming reported lower rates of attempting suicide. In addition, LGBTQIA+ young people who reported living in very accepting communities attempted suicide at less than half the rate of those who reported living in very unaccepting communities. Half. That's the power that the adults who create the spaces that children are forced to occupy have over these kids. And we don't have to guess what the kids need from us. Each person is different, and in a perfect world, we'd make sure that we're working with them to understand how best to support them, especially if we're their counselor. But statistically speaking, based on this study of 50,000 kids, the top 5 actions people can take to best show their support and acceptance that halves that risk is trusting that I know who I am, standing up for me, not supporting politicians that advocate for anti-LGBTQ+ legislation, looking up things about LGBTQ+ identities on their own to better understand, and respecting my pronouns. It doesn't mean getting it right first try. It doesn't mean making no mistakes. It doesn't say perfect, it says respect. Willfully misgendering students is bullying. Failing to respect their pronouns causes direct harm. As parents, educators, counselors, leaders in the community, we do all we can to keep kids safe, right? We believe people when they tell us who they are. We respect students' pronouns. We recognize when we have so much power to prevent harm, and we do all we can to use it. I'm calling on the Amherst schools to prevent any adult from accessing students if that adult has been known to bully students. Please do not let Ms. Dykes access to students ever again. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect, thank you very much.
Jill?
Hi, my name is Jill Brevick. I'm an Amherst resident and the parent of a transgender child who's currently at Fort River Elementary and who will be attending Amherst Regional Middle School in just a couple of years. I'm speaking today specifically because my family is devastated by the decision to reinstate Delinda Dykes as a counselor, and I'm going to try to keep my voice steady. While the arbitrator ruled that her termination was flawed procedurally, that does not erase what the investigation actually found. I don't need to restate what you all know that this person did, the misgendering, calling kids by their dead names, the prayer sessions, the terminology used, the bullying. How can someone with this depth of bigotry be returned to a role of authority and trust over vulnerable children, especially if there is no apology, no recognition of wrongdoing, or reconciliation with everybody that has been harmed? Her acts were acts of violence and identity-based discrimination, and they leave lasting damage. Trans students already face disproportionate rates of bullying. I also don't have to say this, as the person who spoke before me stated so many compelling, important statistics about the disproportionate rates of bullying, mental health crises, suicide. These are really hard truths to stomach as a parent of a child as they come out. And this shouldn't be the case. It is because of decisions like this one. It is the case because of decisions like this one. And tonight, honestly, I'm trying to speak up here while simultaneously shielding my child from the fact that reinstating someone like this is even a possibility in our district. And I'll speak off script for a second too and just say, you know, after shuffling camp and doctor's appointments and craziness today, we were home and I went upstairs and grabbed our trans flag and brought it downstairs, and my kiddo said, "Oh, are we going to a they thing?" And lit up because I had the flag and I was coming downstairs. And I also, side note, their connection to their pronouns is more than just language. The word they is a lot to them. And they asked what we were doing, and I said, a lot of people are gathering today who love you and love kids like you, and they're coming out to show how much they love you and how much they love that you're part of our community. And I couldn't bring myself to say much more than that. Reinstating this person in the district sends the absolute opposite message to my child. This school committee has an obligation to every child, including trans children like mine, to make sure that they know that they are safe, valued, and supported by the adults at school. And honestly, this is not a difference of opinion. The risk is well researched and documented that this is a life or death situation. I hope you understand this and treat it as such. Thank you.
Laura?
I'm Laura Jane Hunter. I use she, her pronouns. I have 2 children in the high school, and my husband is one of the veteran teachers at the middle school. I'm not going to repeat all the statistics. I think the speakers before me have done an incredible job of laying out what the public health crisis is that we are facing in this country now, and that we are facing here in our district. I do want to say that from a personal perspective, hearing that Ms. Dykes was returning to this school was re-traumatizing for my family. And not just for my family, but for all the families that were working so hard to protect their children and their students from misgendering, transphobia, homophobia, religiosity that does not belong in schools. And I also want to acknowledge that the teachers in the middle school have been fighting really hard to protect the students. And it is hard on them as well. They are having to face this fact of having to potentially work with someone that they know actively harms children. And that is just unacceptable. I signed the letter. I don't want Ms. Dykes near my children ever. And I don't think she should ever be allowed to be near any students. She should not be in any student-facing position. I don't understand what happened, what went wrong. I want transparency. I want to understand fully where the district failed. And I know this is not the current administration or this current school committee, because I was here 2 years ago saying the same thing, but I want to understand what went wrong. And I feel like the community is owed an explanation for how this could happen. And so I guess the last thing I want to say is I really appreciate how much space and time this school committee is giving to this issue and Dr. Z, and that I know that we all want a place for our children to thrive, not just to learn, but to thrive, and that people like Ms. Dykes are doing the opposite. So please, please, please act to protect our children, our students, our teachers as well, because that is actually real. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eleanor?
Hey there, my name is Eleanor Trotsky. I'm a transgender member of this community, and I have a statement from one of the parents of the students who filed the original Title IX complaint, which I'll be reading here now. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight, and for always standing up for trans and LGBTQ+ students in our town and in our school. They need it now more than ever. Like you, I feel literally sick that the district has been told to reinstate Delinda Dykes. She regularly misgendered and dead-named my child, who used to wear multiple they-them pronoun pins to their sessions with her. She told me that there were kids with bigger problems than my child had. She showed her incompetence and bigotry in many ways. But also, her reinstatement feels inevitable to me. Our district had every opportunity to listen to trans kids and their parents, and they didn't. They didn't listen when we wrote to the Morris administration. They didn't listen when we filed a Title IX complaint because the district had done nothing. They didn't listen when we poured out every horrible experience to the Title IX investigator. They didn't listen when we wrote to the school committee. They didn't listen when we spoke out at the school committee meetings. And here are the things that have happened since then. The school committee negotiated a buyout for Superintendent Mike Morris, and then members resigned rather than help make things better for trans kids. The school district itself decided it had not violated Title IX because they couldn't see a clear tie between the actions of the guidance counselor and the mental breakdown, hospitalization, and school withdrawal of my child. The middle school student group, POSH, People Opposed to Sexual Harassment, was disbanded and called Age Inappropriate. And the school nurse, who for years was the main support system for trans kids, was pushed out of the middle school. And at the high school, my child continued to be bullied by the same group of boys that bullied them in middle school. I was given every excuse for why it wasn't bullying. Sometimes kids just bark in the hallways, and your child needs to learn to be more resilient. Every email I sent to Interim Superintendent Douglas Slaughter and Principal Talib Sadiq asking how they plan to change the culture at the high school was ignored. And an independent investigator found that administrators failed to follow the school bullying policy 3 different times when my child reported being harassed. On March 1st, 2024, 3 weeks after the non-binary 16-year-old Nex Benedict died in Oklahoma after being severely beaten by students in a school bathroom, a group of 4 boys followed my non-binary child out of the high school and said, "I'm going to take you, going to grab you by your orange-ass backpack, get in my van." When I reported these threats of kidnapping, the principal told me that they weren't really going to do it. I asked several times but never received a bullying report. So yes, I'm horrified that Delinda Dykes might come back to the district, and if she does, I hope she has no contact with children. But so many people are complicit. Everyone that knew what was going on in the middle school and didn't speak up. Every administrator that failed to document discrimination. Every administrator that made excuses for transphobia and pretended it was normal behavior. My child was not safe in our schools. They had to be sent out of district, where they're thriving, by the way. It turns out that being in a safe and respectful environment makes all the difference. What if we just listened to the kids? What if we listened to them from the beginning? At the same time, as I keep telling my brave 16-year-old, it is not our job to re-traumatize ourselves over and over and over again when this district continually fails to listen. It's their job to be a kid, and it's the adult's job to protect them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Naomi?
Hi, I'm Naomi. I'm a paraeducator at Wildwood. I have queer students, I have trans students, I have trans family, and originally I was going to come up here in case the letter took more than 3 minutes so that I could finish reading it in case we needed that. But since I have the time, I just wanted to say that when I was in middle school and I was being bullied, I went to my guidance counselors. My guidance counselors weren't the ones bullying me. And I think that that is a very big distinction, especially when it comes to people who are supposed to help you when you're being bullied. So, just something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lila? Lila? Lila.
You can add more.
It's not there, it's not there. Oh, there it is, okay. I'm probably gonna go, hi, my name is Lila. Thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate, again, all the time, you need to be quiet, that went into this. I'm going to put my phone on like record because I'm probably gonna go off script and I'll send you that later through an email.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. It's doing it. It's doing it? Okay. I'm Lila. I was in the middle school when Delinda Dykes was there. In my sexuality, I'm comfortable in it, and I don't outwardly present who I am. I just seem normal-ish, I guess. So my interactions with her, had less to do with sexuality and more to do with religion, which is, for me, a sensitive topic. I choose to be atheist because I have not yet found a religion that speaks to me. But a number of my family on my father's side are very strongly Christian, and I don't feel safe being myself there. And having that influence brought into my middle school brought the same level of feeling unsafe to be myself. And I know that this is difficult because a lot of people grew up in an entirely different society where people were expected to not fully outwardly present themselves. So this transition is huge and super important, and it's amazing how far we've come. So round of applause to that. But, oh, I've lost my train of thought.
Take it easy.
From there and here, and we got here. And this is education. And as many people have stated, feeling comfortable and safe expressing yourself is part of feeling comfortable and safe in yourself, giving a happy and ready to put into your mindset. I know when I'm unhappy, when I feel unsafe, I can't do my schoolwork. I'm sitting here, there's nothing I'm gonna type on that computer. So yes, this does impact schoolwork. And as a few other people were saying, it also impacts the teachers. Having the safe environment decides how people learn. So this is extremely important for that as well, just for the legal aspect. I understand this was a legal problem, and so I'm not taking out any anger on you guys because I'm pretty sure you're all really decent people considering you're here and listening to me, and that's really important. So what I am here to do is ask you to listen to our stories, as you are. Thank you. I think that's most of what I have to say. A really safe place for me, while we're on this topic, was Queerdos. My friends are here from Queerdos as well. And the teacher that was doing Queerdos had to leave due to budget cuts. And it's really strange to me that Miss Dykes is being hired back and told that she's going to get all her pay back when we had to let go of a teacher that really helped me through some depressive times because of that pay problem. So thank you all for your time. And there's a few more people after me, but have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Sylvie?
Hi.
My name is Sylvan Coco-Romano. I'm going to be a junior at ARHS in the fall, and I just wanted to share, I just wanted to speak because it's tough because I feel like both really supported by this community right now, and I also just feel really devastated because this issue is really all about support and about who's not receiving support. And I'm just worried because I feel worried and I feel like I'm scared for the people who are going to be in the middle school in the fall, and middle school is such like a formative time in lives. Like I was not at the middle school when Miss Dykes was there, so I did not experience any of this directly, but I remember hearing about it and being so scared and worried, and to know that this is happening again to a whole new set of students, or this has the potential to happen to anybody in the elementary, middle, or high schools, is just really scary because it could impact these people that I really care about, these people who deserve to feel respected and not feel like their identity is, like they can't afford to be themselves in front of their guidance counselor, which, as people have already said, is very important because it's a space, like I know in the past 2 years at the high school, like my guidance counselor, Miss Larshbeck, shout out, she's been really great with helping me with stuff when I haven't directly been bullied, but I've had a lot that I've had to talk to her about, and having a guidance counselor who can really listen to you and just accept you and just be there for you when you need it most and you might not have any other supportive people in your life is so, so important. So I just really hope that there will be some way that she is not going to be in contact with students, because I feel like that is the most important issue right now, and I really hope that that happens, and then we can protect our students and show them that they are loved and that they deserve to feel safe in our schools. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Jen?
Thank you. I'm Jed Prujansky on the Select Board from the town of Leverett. I want to first start with the fact that this issue is far broader than the LGBTQIA issue that has been talked about. It affects everybody. When you are in an environment and you see one person or two people being bullied, you feel threatened because you could be the next person, the third or the fourth person on that list. We see that now with what's happening in the federal government. The same thing in a microcosm, it happens in schools. So I think it's important that we keep in mind that this affects everybody, and we need to be extra cautious, not only about that, but about people trying to force their religion down your throat, about racism, about any number of isms that we all despise. So I want to specifically address the board. Within your role, you have the purview of setting policies. It is your responsibility right now to review all your policies in relation to bullying, LGBTQIA, racism, so forth and so on. You need to address those policies, review them with complete transparency so the community once again has faith and trust in the board and the school district. While we realize the loss of that faith may not rest on your shoulders direct personally, it does reflect on the board that you are now sitting on, and you have that responsibility. To Dr. Z, you have the responsibility of ensuring that in whatever capacity Delinda Dykes returns in, that you are monitoring her actions, that she is on a program to remediate some of the deficiencies in her past actions. You have to have a monitoring program in place so that you know everything she does and with whoever she comes in contact with, that those relationships are appropriate, not only in her role as a counselor, but in her role as a peer as well. So that has to be completely monitored because, again, if teachers feel threatened, then the same thing can spread, and we need to stop that. So she also needs to be kept away from children, very clearly. I don't know how you can do that. I understand that there is the law, and she has to be put back in a position similar to the one she had, but I encourage you to do that. The last thing I want to say is to teachers, who are the eyes and the ears of what goes on in schools, and the first ones to step up and help one in need. I congratulate and thank that we have people that we have, the teachers we do in our school today, and certainly they deserve a round of applause for all that they have done. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Vincent O'Connor. I live at 175 Summer Street, Apartment 12 in Amherst, in District 1. And the Regional School Committee has a prepared statement from me that is on an entirely different topic than the one you've been hearing about. And I would ask you to take it under consideration. And I want to speak to the issue of the evening. I am designated guardian, emergency guardian for a student at the high school because of an issue that is one of the other issues of the lunatic administration in Washington, D.C. And I'm also a longtime member of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which puts out a monthly newspaper and has a long history of intervening in school districts where inappropriate activities related to religious activity and pushing have happened, and I encourage both the school committee and individual members of the community to contact the Freedom from Religion Foundation in Madison, Wisconsin, to pursue this matter in whatever way you and they can deem appropriate. My prepared statement concerned the potential that our friends in the City Hall here might want to pursue the issue of consolidating the middle and high school. I quote a book and an interview with the author of the book, a native of Oakland, California. I grew up in San Francisco, so I feel that it's appropriate for me to bring her to the school committee's attention, to the superintendent's attention. I think she would be a wonderful speaker for this community, since I think she went to college nearby. And I hope that while you are focused on this, that you put on your agenda for any demand that we consolidate and make the schools more efficient. Concern for girls that was expressed both in the interview that I refer to and in her book. And I appreciate the school committee's willingness to listen, and I urge the school committee to find a way out of this situation and to use every resource in the community and outside the community, including the Freedom from Religion Foundation, to assist you in making this situation safe and right.
Thank you.
Renew.
Hi, I'm Renu Gehring, and my claim to fame is that I have a 25-year-old transgender son. And as of a few years ago, my ignorance about transgender and even LGBTQIA+ was abysmal. I lived in my world of statistics, which I do professionally, and cooking and taking care of my children. But I love my child. I love both my children very much. And when our child came to us, my husband and me, and said, "Mom, Dad, I'm transgender," and this is after 12 years of fighting life-threatening illnesses, which doctors couldn't figure out. And he said to us, "Mom, Dad, I'm transgender. I've known it all this time, but I'm so scared." Okay? And then we began on a journey through transition. And the difference has been night and day between death and life. And I'm his mother, so you don't need to hear it from me, but I'll tell you, his 94-year-old godmother said, this is his 94-year-old godmother, she said, the difference was a miracle. Gone was the nervous, anxious, timid young woman, and instead there is a smiling, confident, handsome, self-assured young man. Gender-affirming care has saved my child. It has been, so I firmly believe that the care is not only life-changing and life-saving, but also life-giving, just in the way that my husband and I, our bodies, created this little person 25 years ago. And the last thing I'll say is, as parents, we don't become parents, we are committed to that. We know we love our children. And I teach at UMass, and you don't go into education for a get-rich-quick scheme. We love our children. So each and every person in the school needs to, inside them, needs to have an open heart full of love and support for every child. And we need to listen to our children. They know who they are. Thank you.
Thank you.
AT.
Hi there, I am AT. I did not plan on doing this. I usually don't talk to more than 5 people at a time. But while I was listening to all those stories and personal stories, I was looking around. And what I saw was this on the wall in this room. I would love it, and I'm sure students, community, and everyone here would love it if your actions supported these words. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kara Knott, and I hadn't planned on saying anything, so I don't have anything prepared. I'm a parent of 2 children who graduated from the Amherst Regional Schools and 1 child who's in the high school. He was in the middle school, he's transgender, and he was relentlessly bullied and harassed throughout his time at ARMS with anti-trans bullying, threats, and it was devastating for him. But what drove him to harm himself and consider suicide was the way in which the adults responded. He went to all of the adults charged with helping him, and time again, they continued to put him in harm's way. They did not follow the processes and procedures that were then in place to protect him. They never once reported any of the incidents over 2 years. Not only did they fail to do their duty and follow the processes and procedures, but they contributed to the harm by misgendering him, by making excuses for the people who were threatening and harassing him. So my child is thriving today. I am really lucky that he survived middle school. I am so grateful. He has goals, even in the climate that we live in, where he has to think about which state he can apply to college in, because not all states will allow him to get life-affirming care that he needs. Even in this climate, he's thriving and excited and is loving high school. But I almost lost him in middle school, and really because of how the adults behaved. So I am begging the school committee, the leadership here in the district, to not only demand that appropriate policies and practices are created to protect all children, including my child and children like him, but that they are implemented with fidelity. They are consistently across all schools in our district, that there's accountability and transparency, and if and when there are problems, that's communicated and dealt with immediately, and that there's proper supervision and accountability for all staff who interact with our kids. So when problems arise, as they will, they're addressed immediately. So it's not 2 years of relentless, uninterrupted bullying that any child should experience. So that's what I charge you with, ask you for, and really expect from all of you who've chosen to occupy these roles that you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Amber?
Hi, everybody. Members of the Regional School Committee, Dr. Z, thank you all so much for being here and for listening to us. So my name is Amber Cano Martin. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a parent to 2 children in the district, one who just finished middle school, and I also have a 4th grader who will soon be in the middle school. I'm here before you today in a state of anger, shock, and fear for children in our schools after hearing the news that Delinda Dykes won her arbitration case and can be reinstated to once again work in our schools. First and foremost, I would ask all of you, even though you weren't necessarily here at the time that this happened, that these events transpired in 2023, to please do your due diligence to look into how this happened and how she was allowed to win her arbitration case when there was ample evidence against her of what she did in terms of mistreating and misgendering and bullying transgender students. I think letting the community know as well and making that public as to what happened and how we can prevent it again, to have a staff member like that come back to our schools. And if there's no other option and we have to allow her back into the schools, I ask you to make sure that she not be put into any position where she will be interfacing with any students at all. That is really, really important. That is not safe. I will be planning to write letters for both of my children asking that they have no contact with her whatsoever in the school system in any way, shape, or form, and I hope and believe other parents will join me in doing so as well. We're going to be staying vigilant and involved in this issue. You'll probably be hearing from us again, and we look forward to your action to support the community and the students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos. I'm enrolled here at this high school because I'm a rising 9th grader, but I did not attend Amherst Middle School, and that is due in large part to Delinda Dykes because sort of towards the end of my 6th grade year, I was hit with this barrage of really traumatic and painful stories of people who were just like 1 or 2 grades above me, and I was so scared that I left. Like, I left the school district for 2 years, and I'm back now, but let that sink in. I left, and I don't want to ask much today, but I just want you to think of someone who may be 12, or they might be 11 or 10, and they're a closeted queer or trans kid, and they have to know that the person that they're encouraged to look up to for guidance and support is the main perpetrator of homophobia and transphobia in the middle school. That is terrible, and I'm appalled. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike?
Hi, all. Mike Pfeiffer, parent of a former Amherst Regional student. I yield my time to Ally Wick-Slim.
Hi again. I didn't plan to do this at all, so bear with me. The problem with running a caucus is you usually have to talk for a caucus and not yourself. But I'm sitting here listening, and I know that pretty soon you're going to be talking about policies and procedures to protect kids. And there's a piece of this that I don't want you to lose in that conversation. In 2023, the first time I sat in this seat, some of you were here then, some of you were new, the first words out of my mouth were that I was a queer youth, and I survived that, and not all of us do. What I didn't share was that I was harassed for being a queer youth. I was bullied. I was sexually harassed, and I never reported, not once. Students are going to suffer and struggle, and they're not going to report because they don't trust the administration to take care of them. When I was a youth in the 80s, it was because we weren't having these conversations, but now we are having these conversations. We know better, and you still have buildings worth of kids who aren't going to report because they watched their friends report and they saw what happened. So any policy you look at for the one kid who makes it in front of you, I want you to see 15, 20, 25 kids standing behind them, afraid to come forward because of what this district has done to them. You know how hard it is to get somebody who's experienced trauma to report, even if they have every faith in the world that you're going to believe them. Kids here have no reason to believe or trust that they're going to be heard, believed, or met. And the trauma begins the moment the person who harmed them is in the building that they are expected by law to walk into. You can't prevent that. So you need to know that every kid who walks through that door is a trauma survivor because they know that they told they were not protected and the person who harmed them was allowed back in the building. You can put policies around that. You can try to prevent contact, but you can't undo the harm it caused to have told and not been believed and not been protected. Please hold that in your minds and hold it in your hearts and reflect it in your policies because it will change lives either way from this point forward, what you do. Treat every student as a trauma survivor. Treat every person who comes forward as if they're standing in front of 20 people who couldn't. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was all of the public comment that was on the list, correct? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Sarah Beth. I know you don't have school committee announcements on the agenda, but I have a quick thing I wanted to say. Could I?
Yes.
Thank you. You can time me if you want. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I know that you're here because you're deeply concerned about the safety and well-being of our students. I want to start by saying that I share that concern, and every student in our district deserves to feel seen, respected, and protected at school, without exception. As many of you know, the unfortunate fact of the matter is that this is a result of a legal process that the district is legally obligated to comply with. In addition, the school committee itself does not have authority over individual employment decisions of this kind. I know that can be really frustrating and upsetting to hear, and it's frustrating and upsetting for me too, but that's the legal framework that we operate within. That said, I want to speak directly to the sense of outrage and heartbreak that many of you are feeling. This is a community that values inclusion, justice, and accountability. And if you feel those values are under threat, and if you live in Amherst, I urge you to channel those feelings into action through running for school committee. All 5 school committee seats in Amherst are up for election in November. Nomination papers are available right now at the town clerk's office in Town Hall. If you want to help shape the future of this district, if you believe that our students need strong advocates, then step forward, run for office. Feel free to contact me, and I will be happy to pass along my knowledge and experience to you. Democracy isn't something that happens to us, it's something we do together, and it demands our participation. I know you know this because you're all here tonight. It's especially important in moments when it feels hard. So thank you again for caring enough to come and to speak out and to show up for our students. And let's keep showing up. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Dr. Z?
So first of all, good evening, everyone, as Ms. Ortiz gets up and starts setting up. Greetings, everyone. Good evening. I'd like to start off by saying thank you for coming. And before Ms. Ortiz presents, I want to take a moment to speak directly. I'm a very direct person by nature. And tonight, I speak not just as your superintendent, but as a person who deeply believes in this district, its people, its values, its promise, and its potential. So, and I usually don't go on script, but I had to write it down because there are a lot of emotions today. Over the past few months, and more specifically, few weeks, I've spent a great deal of time reflecting. Most recently on the arbitration decision involving personnel, but also on broader patterns emerging across our systems. Let me be honest and true to myself by saying this situation has given me significant pause, and at various times, the district has caused, and even some of these situations, specifically this, real discomfort, not just professionally, but personally. As a leader who entered this role with a clear vision to lead with love, with transparency, and with a relentless focus on students. But we cannot meet that commitment if our systems are unclear, unenforced, or inconsistent. The arbitration decision highlighted long-standing gaps in how we document, communicate, and enforce expectations related to personnel. These issues didn't appear overnight. They point to a deeper problem, a system where practices around supervision, performance management, and accountability have too often been informal or inconsistently applied. In some cases, they've never been clearly defined at all. This is not acceptable for the educators who deserve clarity and support, for the families and community who expect us to work with integrity, and most importantly, for the students we are all here to serve and protect. As Governor Mara Healey recently stated, we have to be honest about where we've fallen short, not to assign blame, but to get better. That is exactly the spirit I bring tonight. This is not about scapegoating or pointing fingers. It's about doing the hard, necessary work of rebuilding a system that is clear, fair, and enforceable. Because only then can we cultivate an educational environment where excellence and true equity can thrive. I understand that change is often uncomfortable, and yes, this work will disrupt long-standing habits and assumptions. But discomfort is not danger. It's where growth lives. We must normalize hard conversations. We must ensure that every employee, from the central office to the classroom, understands their responsibilities and is both supported and held accountable in fulfilling them. That includes conducting timely evaluations, documenting concerns, and giving meaningful feedback, not only when something goes wrong, but as a part of a professional culture rooted in continuous improvement in a healthy system. I want to be absolutely clear. Fear of retaliation, especially when the well-being and safety of children are at stake, will no longer be a valid excuse to avoid mandatory reporting or bypass established channels. That's why, in alignment with School Committee Policy KE, we will release a complaint and communication guideline before the start of the school year to bring clarity, consistency, and transparency to how concerns are raised and resolved. This is not just a moment to evaluate how we lead. It's a moment to redefine how we operate in this district. I've heard a lot of concerns, so I'm going to say key themes that stood out to me from the arbitration report. Leadership requires making decisions that may be uncomfortable or unpopular, but are necessary. Leadership demands the courage to act when evidence substantiates concerns, even when those concerns begin as rumors. Personnel concerns become nothing more than hearsay, unfortunately, when they are not substantiated by documentation. Documentation that reflects progressive discipline, due process, and accountability, consistent at every level. We cannot ghost governance in this district. Accountability begins with documentation that allows us to move from perceptions to action with clarity, care, and true concern. Silence in the face of non-compliance cannot be tolerated. Protections are in place, and while the fear of retaliation is often real, it cannot be an excuse for failing to do what's right for children. Leadership is not avoiding conflict. It's not staying silent when difficult truths arise. Courage to stand firm when systems must change. And courage to hold ourselves and one another to a higher standard of accountability is what we need in leadership. If we are serious about doing better, then we as a collective community and the broader community, we must be willing to face the necessary changes that doing better requires. That includes redesigning systems, clarifying expectations, and aligning our work to serve students, not egos, not comfort zones, and not habits of the past. I remain committed to moving this district forward, and I'm hoping to move it forward with each and every one of you collectively for our children. More importantly, I am committed to making sure that students stay at the center of every decision we make. We are not just making changes for the sake of compliance. We are changing to become the kind of district every child deserves. We cannot ever arrive at this same place again. We owe it to our children and to the future of this district to end this now. So I ask for your support as myself and my district leadership team continue to take on and to be courageous as we undertake the systemic changes needed. This journey will be uncomfortable, but it is essential for all children to be comfortable, to be safe, and to feel that they're in an environment where they can be their true and authentic selves. And with that, I hand it over to Ms. Ortiz.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank you all so much for coming out tonight.
Good evening.
It just takes a minute. She's pokey.
Thank you, Dr. Z. Good evening, school committee members. I was asked to present today, this evening, and my take today, my lens on this will be from an HR perspective solely, and I'll try to keep it as that. As Dr. Z stated, emotions, I'm hoping my emotions don't get the better of me, so if they do, I apologize, and I'm going to try to keep to my script as well. As we start today, the update is on strengthening accountability practices through documentation and leadership action. I wanted to start this presentation with my own reflective thoughts and my own process as I worked through why we are where we are today and what has led us to the key findings and the points that you brought up, Dr. Z, from the report. And my reflective questions came from a place of why has the district been unable to take appropriate action? And that led me to, well, there's not the necessary documentation in place. And from there, it just spirals. So please bear with me while I go through these inner workings because they're pertinent to the conversation we're going to have today during our presentation. And so why is that documentation lacking? And it's that it's inconsistent across our leadership, our building leadership, and that's something that we need to own. And so why aren't those leaders documenting? And what I have found is really a fundamental discomfort among leadership to have difficult conversations and a lack of confidence in being able to handle and address personnel issues. And so then that becomes reflective on our system. Why are they so uncomfortable with having these discussions? Why are they so uncomfortable with taking personnel action as needed? And is it that they don't have the proper training, or have they felt they don't have the support that is needed? And is that because there's been a past systemic issue with underemphasizing the importance that we need to have documentation, right? And leadership accountability, importantly. And so we want to build from there on why we need to strengthen our systems for accountability. And I'm going to talk a little bit about things that we've put in place already, things that we're currently working on. And so one of those pieces is our updated and enhanced progressive discipline guidelines that we've worked on that have been introduced in the past, but we've really done a great job of enhancing for this year for our administrators. And really what we're trying to convey for administrators is that this is an operationalized chart. This is what we expect you to use, is a 1 through 5 step process where you have very clearly outlined steps on what to do when an issue arises and what your responsibility is. And to clearly outline what the leader's role is in this, what the employee's role is in this, as well as sample evidence. When we say we want to see a letter of expectation, this is the template we want you to use. This is an example. When we say a verbal warning, written warning, what does that look like, so that there can't be the excuse of, well, I don't know, I've never done this before, or I'm uncomfortable with the process. Furthermore, it's holding leaders accountable for timely and thorough response to concerns. The expectation is for leaders to respond promptly to concerns that arise either in their department or at their building level, to investigate it, to document it properly, whatever their findings may be, and based on those findings, be able to take the appropriate disciplinary action if necessary, or apply our progressive discipline guidelines to whatever the findings are of their investigation. And then from there, escalate it if necessary to HR, depending on the situation that arises, if it's egregious enough or if it needs to be risen to a higher level. We're also working on reviewing and updating our handbook and our boundaries document. This is the document that all employees, this is the first document you receive along with your employment contract. This is a tool and a resource for you to know what are the expectations when coming to work in our districts. That being said, our goal this year is to include a professional code of conduct, to include the progressive discipline guidelines and chart in there as well. And we would also like to include a comprehensive list of the school committee's policies. The expectation here is that when you come to work in our districts, this is what we expect from our employees. And if those expectations can't be met, then this is what you have to expect from there. We expect it to be transparent and fair and consistent across the board. That's why we want everyone to have access to this information, so it's not a surprise to anyone. We've also recently begun work with the Joint Policy Subcommittee, which I'm very excited about. And that work, the initial focus of that work, which I believe will be touched on this evening as well, is really keeping students safe, students and staff safe in our environments, in our schools, and making sure that we have policies in place so that we can act on when those expectations aren't met, when those policies are violated. I'm also really looking forward to developing personnel policies that we can use as a framework to guide our work within the district offices in creating guidelines and procedures and practices moving forward. I think it's pretty evident what the risk of inaction is. When concerns go unaddressed and unfortunately undocumented, it's students, staff, and families who are impacted the most. Patterns of misconduct persist, and we limit our own ability to intervene, right? We tie our own hands, and that's what's been quite evident. There's no other way to say this, but the district needs to do better. District leadership needs to do better. We need to own where the gaps in the process are, the systemic failures are, and we need to be able to do the uncomfortable work. Dr. Z said it, but I was prepared to say it this evening regardless. We need to be okay with not being liked in the moment because we are having an uncomfortable conversation with someone, because we're holding someone accountable for their actions. We can no longer hide behind, well, I don't know the process, I don't understand it. There are systems, there's tools in place currently, and we're enhancing those tools so that you know exactly what to do when a concern comes to your level and how to respond and the appropriate action to take. It's our job to make sure that kids are safe in our schools. It's our job to make sure that students have access to education and that when they're entrusted in our care, we provide them with a safe place to not, someone said it this evening, not to just be educated, but to thrive. That is our responsibility. And we chose these seats, we chose these positions, and that is what we are here tasked to do. And it is going to be very difficult work. It's going to be uncomfortable work. And I would urge the committee that through our policy making, that you support the work that will be happening at the district level as we work to tighten our systems and our practices moving forward. And again, we all know why this matters. We know why this is important. In order to have a strong school system and a strong culture within that system, we need to be able to have safe, supportive schools for our students and for our staff as well. Our staff need to also feel supportive and know that when something happens, when something is happening or going on, that there will be accountability for that. It does not do any good to morale when they see someone getting away with or continually harming students or harming other staff members. It is not good for our school systems. It is also okay to have very high expectations for staff conduct and performance. That is okay. That is an expectation among most all organizations, and we need to have that here as well. We need to have our clear accountability systems, and we have to have a system that supports staff development as well as interventions when things don't go the way they should. And does the committee have any questions?
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm very glad to hear that this work is underway. If there's one of the things that I was a member of the public at the time, 2 years ago, was calls for accountability, but we can't hold people accountable if we haven't told them what standards they have to meet, and
That's
we
right.
haven't told them what are the consequences and documented every step of that. So it's very important. I have two questions, and maybe they intersect. I'm not sure. I'm interested to, I've never heard of this boundaries document. I'd be curious to know what that's about. And I wonder if it touches on an issue that was raised during public comment many times, and this is not, doesn't relate to any one individual, but what is the line between that we can draw, or that the state draws for us in its laws, regarding adults discussing their religious practices or beliefs or whatever with students? And where is the boundary there between what is permissible, and we have no right to stop, and what is not permissible?
I'll address your first question. The boundaries document is attached to the employee handbook, and it's basically at this moment a list of do's and don'ts of what is appropriate interactions between students and staff, your responsibility with inter-colleague dynamics. That's basically what it boils down to. We're working on it currently as well to be much more comprehensive and all-encompassing, so that staff really have a very clear view of what the expectations are for them as they come to work in our districts. In terms of religious boundaries, there is the separation of church and state. I'm no attorney, but I can say very clearly that staff in our districts should not be sharing anything about their religion with students. That's not what we've asked them to do. If you are not teaching a course on religion, that should not be part of the topic or part of your conversation and discussion with students. It has no place in public education.
And is there, if I can
Follow up?
follow up. So is that made clear somewhere in handbooks or boundaries?
It will be.
Oh, it will be. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Yeah, go ahead, Deb.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for this. I'm happy to see that the work is moving forward. How do we, as a district, address the other end of things? So you're working on making sure that the employees understand what the policies are and the procedures. But say I'm a student, how do I understand what my rights are in terms of those kinds of uncomfortable conversations, inappropriate conversations? How do we, and this is just a general question for all of us, not you specifically, but the other end of that is students perhaps realizing that there are missing parts of a guidance counselor session or inappropriate parts of a guidance counselor session, or in working on their special education plan. What can we as an administration, Dr. Z, how do we do this?
So that was a part of what I spoke about with school committee policy KE. When in our work and the things that we're working on for the communication plan, school committee policy KE talks about how to file complaints, especially around instruction discipline, and it's starting with the teacher. So what we are going to do is actually, again, like everything else, operationalize that and bring that forward in informing children. Just like this wonderful poster that we created around bullying, harassment, and prevention, is starting to create what's the communication for students. If you feel uncomfortable, if you need to communicate in a situation, here are your steps. The one thing that we want to be clear on is that in any level, just like the school committee policy states, but in the law, everything else that we do, it has to start at the school. So the idea is if you're uncomfortable with your counselor or with a teacher or with a paraeducator, you start that complaint with the principal. You go to the principal, assistant principal, and you make that complaint. If you've got no resolve, you bump it up now to the superintendent's office. So we're going to take that communication tree and make it quite clear for parents, this is what you do. Students, this is what is available to you. And then in our handbook, staff, this is how you communicate complaints.
So follow up?
Yep.
So before that, how do I, as a student, know what is within my, even if I don't feel uncomfortable about it, if somebody says something to me and it doesn't like ring a bell in the back of my head that, hey, that's a weird thing to say, how does the student understand what the boundaries are, regardless of whether or not they've internalized the appropriateness or lack of appropriateness of an interaction?
I hear what you're asking, and it would take us to create like a level of education. Perhaps I can't clearly explain. It's kind of like when children grow up, we learn good touch, bad touch. We learn what's a known, like what makes you uncomfortable or what spirals something within your spidey senses start to tingle. This doesn't seem right, right? And everyone is not at the same emotional place in terms of development. We would have to work with our instructional team and our team internally to determine how do we make that age appropriate, outside of I just don't feel comfortable or I feel like something occurred that was wrong. And that, again, I can't specifically say that, but I do think that that's something that we can take back as a team to kind of work on and say, how do we build this in? Whether, again, we do a campaign, we do videos, we create lessons. A lot of the schools, and I'm going to say this, whether it's through individual sessions, whatever form of education they have with students and curriculum, they have this, especially, it's on the tip of my tongue what the elementary schools use, and I can't, for social emotional learning, and thank you, second step. Thank you. They use second step, which introduced them to different concepts around just, being a good citizen, right and wrong, social emotional learning. And so kind of there's that education, but then there's also the intrinsic feeling. So I think we would have to do some work in expanding on that to allow students to know that this is a safe space for you when you feel like something, or you visualize something, or you just have a concern. Like you're not even sure. Like you want to ask a question. Is this okay? Like creating that space to communicate that.
Thank you.
So I have Tim, Irv, Bridget, and Anna. Tim?
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yep, we can hear you.
I am. Thanks. So a thought I had based on what Deb and Dr. Z were just saying is that when I was an 11th grader, I joined a peer counseling group that was offered at my school. Sort of all of a sudden, I think probably one teacher decided that she really wanted to do that. It attracted a decent number of students. There were about 35 students, including myself, and it was helpful to those of us who wanted to become peer counselors, even if we didn't understand what that was. But what we learned how to do was how to show up for other students. A lot of students have kind of an intrinsic motivation to look out for one another. And if the district has the resources to provide a structured and instructed way to help students look out for each other, I think that will go a long way, in addition to everything else that we learned in Jennifer's presentation. So just wanted to offer that as a suggestion. So Jennifer, that was a great presentation, and I really appreciate you giving it. I think, hearing from the public comment a lot of need for transparency and visibility. The presentation you just gave about the work that has been done in recent months, the work that you're planning to do, helps to meet those needs. And I would like to request Dr. Z and Jennifer, you're probably already planning to do this or thinking about how to do this, but that we make this a regular series of presentations, at least for the time being. I don't know how frequent they should be. Maybe we come back and have this, hear from you again in a month or two. Well, a month, school won't even begin then, but let's say end of September or beginning of October, it would be good to get an update from you on the progress. I don't necessarily want to say you should have milestones and a timeline or anything like that about the trainings, and I recognize also that we are talking about a lot of personnel issues, that those details won't be forthcoming at a public meeting, and I totally understand that. But that's my request, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Irv.
I have been holding back a lot of anger tonight after hearing all of this. And the reason for my anger is that I thought that I was being a really good school committee member by following all the rules and regulations about contact with staff, parents, etc., when all of this was going on. And everything that I heard at that time, I was here, I was a school committee member. And as a school committee member, I took all of my concerns to the appropriate person, the superintendent. And I was assured that that certainly could not be. And when I heard that there were religious meetings being held before school by staff and faculty, I said, of course that can't happen. And I was told, well, that's legally, that's in their rights. But I followed all of those, and I didn't go further. I didn't go far enough. I really didn't go far enough to say, hey, why am I continuing to hear all this stuff? I've talked to you, sat down in your office. We've had in-depth conversations, and you've assured me that steps are being taken to take care of this situation. It was a damn complete lie. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just not. Because I am not going to be stepped on again like that. I'm not going to be surprised. I'm not going to hear that kids have been hurt and I was not doing anything because I believed. And belief is just not enough. So what I want to see is clear, consistent communication back to me from the administration. I also want to know what steps have been taken. And I want the administration to put their jobs behind what they're saying to me. That's what I want. And I want to see that you, the administration, puts that in writing to us. So when I talk to you, I know that I'm getting the truth. I am not going to be in a position where I'm lied to again. I am not going to turn a deaf ear to that which I hear. I will report it, but I'm not going to turn a deaf ear to it. And I will expect to see action, and when action isn't taken, then there's a clear path for what this school committee has to do. We sat back, and we believed, and we were hurt.
Thank you, Bridget. Oh, yep.
So I
Sorry.
just want to say, as the leader of the current administration, I have begun with accountability. I will continue with accountability. And I know that there's a lot of emotions, but I just, again, in my vein, do not want it to go unnoticed that any action of this district, my team, and specifically me, own. And more so than not, we will hold everyone accountable in every role. What I do ask is for the continued support in when those uncomfortable decisions come forward, when employees come forth and start sending emails, when things start moving forward, when community members may have half the story and not the whole story as to why actions are taken, that we also support that. Because a lot of things that occur, personnel matters or not, they are investigated. Under my watch, since I've been here, anything that's come to me has been investigated, actions taken. And what I will say is some of the actions have caused me more unpopular pushback than popular. And so I am not afraid to make the hard and difficult decisions. But what I am going to say is that for that to continue and for the system to be one where children are held first, and that's who I hold first in every decision, we will need that continued support. So if there's something like a confidentiality agreement, if there is something that comes forward in terms of changing procedures and expectations, there's a lot of change that's going to come forward. And I agree, Irv, trust but verify. And in that, I say, we need to make sure that we hold one accord, that in the process, we receive our updates, but we know that this administration is going to hold everyone accountable because I hold myself at the highest accountability for this district. So I agree with you, but know that I hold myself highly accountable and I will hold everyone on my staff accountable for children.
Thank you, Dr. Z. Bridget.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, for coming forward, but I want to acknowledge a little bit of the cognitive dissonance that I feel with the meeting. We're going straight to the HR stuff and the policy stuff because of the confines of school committee. But I think, the last meeting we had that was in private, I was really quiet. But the reason is because I just feel like I want to rebel against the situation as it is. I want us to explore all our options, whatever they may be, for civil disobedience against the decision. And I understand that's not the smartest path, but I'm just expressing, I think, the feeling, how this committee also conjoins with the community in the feeling, even though we may end up having different responsibilities in the end. And you know, how do we get to a better standing? I think that's the proactive step to make, but just starting out there. But at the same time, I just feel so, so grateful that I do live in this community where people can come forward and tell their stories, and I hope that they can know and feel by the end of the night that they're received with love and support, and that we all want to get to that place of the same page. But I feel like we need to acknowledge, like, as this school committee who came in after the other school committee, that we've made some progress, right? We've got a new superintendent, we've got a new leadership team. The Title IX committee, myself, William, and Deb, passed the Welcoming Schools, and we have, you know, we passed as a full body to commit to Welcoming Schools for the next 3 years, to show our kids from preschool, elementary, through the middle and high school that they are welcome, they are loved, we affirm who they are in whatever shape or form they come to us, right? But then for you, Jennifer, I'm looking for the tie-in there. We want to be showing the staff that we're building this culture and climate for all our students, but also that's the bare minimum we expect for people who are showing up to work in their jobs. And if not, you're coming for them, you know? And like, I guess I want to know like how you're going to make that clear, how you're going to show them that. And I think even for you and Dr. Z to be present while Welcoming Schools is there, and tying that piece in as well. This isn't just something we're learning. This is actually a responsibility of something you need to implement day to day on your job. And there's one last piece I have, which is about this sort of question of KE and then tying back to BRIM, because I think that's another place we did make some progress as this committee is coming through with the policy and working together with Dr. Z to get the bullying process up and running, but we still hear up until now that we have gaps between the BRIM system being there, people able to make a report, and the follow-through in the buildings, whether it's with deans or I can't name anyone's particular name probably without giving up a case, but we really want to know, how do we know that's being followed through on, and what are you doing to hold the leadership, the levels of leadership in those buildings accountable to putting the stop to it that we all want?
Can I jump in before you jump in? Okay. Tying everything together, like you've asked me to, in answering the question, one of the things that when individuals brought forth concerns to me, especially in the central office, if a director or someone who's over a specific area comes forward to me and say they have a concern with a school principal, with a fellow director, with something that's being done, my first question to them was, did you try to work it out directly with them, right? And they may say, well, I had a conversation. My often, just so I can tie everything together, including this case, my follow-up is, send them an email and CC me, right? Let me see, as the person over this area, that you have a concern with the implementation of these things. Let me see, as the person over this area, that you are now engaging in a back and forth over this thing. Or do you have a back and forth with you and this person that I can now step in on? Because I am the person who supervises the leaders of the building, not Jen. I mean, I wish I could share it, but I got. The reason for that is it starts to build that level of, here are the steps that were already taken. Here's that due process. Here's that progressive discipline. Here's that intervention. I have two problems that I've been faced with since coming in. There's been a practice of the superintendent jumping in ahead of time. So there is that gap in the process, right? Where there's not that progression of it started at the lowest level and moved its way up. There is also, I am now going to address a situation with someone that I have no evidence really of what the specific situation is I am going to address. I am going based on what you say, then I have walked into meetings and said, hey, this is what I have been faced with. This is what I've been told you've done. And the other person is able to say, well, I never had that conversation with the person. There is no evidence of this, or I haven't had this. And now I am issuing a directive to someone who's claiming that they're doing it, and they can sometimes bring me that evidence. This is why accountability in the process and consistency will be enforced for all. As leaders, we have a role to play. And I'll use Tanya because she's here. And if Tanya has an issue with implementation of an academic program at a school, the directive is going to be the same. Email that, can you show me where you and this person has engaged in a back and forth? Can you show me that? And if not, can you start that? Can you at least tell me what the specific thing is? And then let's have a meeting, all three of us together. Bridget, you should know I am not afraid of having difficult conversations. I think at one meeting you told me you feel like I kind of moved along without pulling everyone along. And I say that to say that we are in a place where we have no choice if we really want to make our system work, where that process of everyone doing their role and documenting has to be in place. That is the only way then Jennifer Ortiz can then bring a package or support them in a package to come to me to shift their employment practice. That's one. Two, in terms of BRIM, I believe in my last ED conversation, we talked about for Admin Week, kind of looking at one of the things, which is we still use Educator Handbook at schools, and we have BRIM. And I was informed recently that some schools were told to use Educator Handbook over BRIM, right? Some teachers and individuals, so they haven't been reporting in BRIM. This is in our whole debrief this summer. So now, what we need to do as a leadership team, and what I said is, well, we need to, one, determine what's the one software that we are going to use to document behaviors, to document concerns, because BRIM is to document bullying and harassment. They're saying Educator Handbook is if a teacher has concerns with behaviors and things, but they're still using it. Some schools are still using it to document bullying instances. So yes, there are gaps and inconsistencies, and we're working on it. And I want to say that is why one of the things that I said around my evaluation is, if I can in the next year, even in this year, my goal this year, firm up levels of governance, our systems, our structures, everything else would just be implementation. So there are gaps that we need to identify, and I'll hand it over to you, Jen.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on 2 points. One thing that you said was, then I can bring you actual packets of, for next steps. We've done that this year. We've been successful in doing that this year. There have been, I can't go into specifics as you're obviously aware, but there have been specific instances when principals and leaders have come to me asking for certain disciplinary or employment action that I have said, I can't, you've got to go, where's the first level, right? And they've had to go back and they've had to redo the work. And they don't like it, but they have to go back and they have to redo the work. And then when they finally have gone and done the work, then they present it to me, then I can present it to the superintendent. I know the system works because we've already implemented and we've working it through this year. It's not just with one principal, it's been with multiple principals. And when they follow the system of progressive discipline and when they follow the system of, whatever whatever it is that we're implementing, it has worked. I can attest to that. But to your point, Bridget, about welcoming schools, and so I'm going to take it a little bit more into the PD realm, and I'll try not to, step too much into it, Tanya, but I'm really excited because this school year, the HR department, along with the Office of Teaching and Learning, we've implemented a new evaluation system and a new database that we're actually really excited about, and as well as a new professional development database, and they're all tied in together. And the really unique and special thing about it is that when an educator, a supervisor is able to identify an area of need for an educator, they can go right into the professional development database and assign the specific PD that they need as part of their evaluation process. I did not mention that here during my presentation today, but we need to vastly improve when it comes to evaluating the educators in our system. That's not something that we can hide. That's not something that we can cover up. Supervisors need to vastly, significantly improve in giving real feedback, honest feedback, and giving feedback at all, and evaluating staff. People can't get better if they don't know what they need to get better in. So we're very excited about this system. We've used it this first school year. And we're going to implement it then for all staff in the following school year. Administrators have already been trained on how to use it. It's got calendaring features, so they don't forget when they have to do their goal-setting meetings. But, you know, it's another, when we're thinking of how can we improve the way things are, we have to start at the basics. We have to implement new systems. We have to implement new structures. That's the work that we're trying to do. And yes, HRC, welcoming schools, that is something that we're working with and that we're implementing and has been implemented in the past.
And I
2
want to
years.
say I'm going to expand
A year.
on HRC Welcome in School because I did have this brief conversation with the Joint Policy Committee. What I've decided to do is to look specifically at, there's different trainings around not just the schools, like working in the system, which I feel like Welcome in School is creating in the system, but for us in the central office and individuals who work on the system, what are trainings that are out there that provide? So we've identified a few, one as close as Harvard. There's others. We'll reach out to HRC and see if they have, because what we want is there's for the teachers and individuals in the system, and when you are cultivating and creating the policies, the procedures, the guidelines for individuals to be in, there's a different realm and lens that you have to look at. And so we plan to kind of identify different trainings and providers for the leadership specific in the central office and creating those parameters.
Super. Can I just really quick follow-up?
Yep.
I just want to say I also agree with what Tim said, and there's some really specific follow-up that we could have on regular agendas. Maybe like, are you setting a measurable objective for the percent of evals that are completed? And you've got a baseline now. What do you want to grow that to? And similarly with BRIM or the reporting mechanism that's going to be consistent, what's that look like? How are the bullying reports? Like, I want to see those numbers just as regularly as we see warrants. I don't think we see warrants anymore, but you get my drift, right? Yeah.
I will just jump in quickly and say we do have a policy that says there's an annual HR report that happens in December. So that's already on the master calendar for our next school year. I'm not sure it happened last year, so I see what your face is saying, but it is, I have gone through all of the policies and pulled out whatever I could to help build our agenda, an annual agenda for our future selves. Anna.
So I just want to express how frustrated personally I have been with the situation. It seems impossible to me that an arbitrator would decide that there is evidence of wrongdoing, but that there were procedural gaps which make it impossible to fire the person and illegal to fire the person, and that they must be reinstated in their current position, even though there were findings of actual wrongdoing. And it's not clear to me. It seems like you do not need progressive discipline for certain types of offenses. And if there's a certain type of offense, it should be immediately fireable. And maybe we just need to have a policy that states that. And so then it becomes okay to fire someone immediately without progressive discipline because they did something that was very clearly a violation of something written in a policy. But there has to be a way of separating from an employee who egregiously violates a policy, who hurts students without progressive discipline, and dragging out the procedure and leaving them in contact with students for further harm before we can actually let them go and separate from them. And we have to figure out a way to write that into our policy, to write that into procedures, to make it possible, write it into contracts, to make it possible to do that so that we don't get placed in this position again where we are forced to bring someone back, forced to let them interact with students, and we have no real way of fighting that, and we cannot let that happen again. So I don't know if there's
Anna,
something specific that you understand about this that would be helpful.
I will say in reference to what you last stated, one of the things that the district was asked to submit, and I think we did it through legal counsel, was the policies and procedures that our employees function under. So that includes any school district policies. That includes our we submitted, I believe, the handbook and with the employee boundaries document. the district functions, and I, as superintendent, do create guidelines or procedures that align with policy. I believe that, I think they'll talk about it next, the Joint Policy Committee is looking for whatever policy gaps that the committee feels we need to address. And, you know, like, I think Deb has a list of personnel policies. But one of the things is that there is a current policy, and I can't remember the number, because again, since this has happened, we've been digging and working. And it talks about these are the things that are considered conduct of unbecoming or even terminable. So looking at our current policies and updating some of those things to say this is now there would be what would be there, and then we would create the guidelines to abide by that.
Thank you. William?
So, thank you for everyone that's here, first. On the staff boundaries, and when you're looking at creating those, is there a place in there where we could have procedures, the procedural steps for the bullying and harassment policies that we have, and make it mandatory for reporting into BRIM, or mandatory for reporting into the handbook, whatever system you're going to choose? I have heard reports that a lot of times reports are not put into the systems because they don't find there's merit to it, and that is not how we wrote our policy. That is not the policy that we presented.
To clarify, and I agree with you, and it's something that we've been working on from the beginning, from as everything started to progress and unfold, especially in November when certain things came to light for me. You want us to clearly identify procedurally in the handbook, not the Brown document, but in our handbook,
Right.
that for bullying and harassment, individuals are to file claims within BRIM. That's what you want us to do. And the
If
investigation.
that's possible.
Okay, thank
Right?
you.
I mean,
Thank
that's
you.
out of my lane.
Well,
'Cause that's your proceduralizing it.
Right.
But could it be in staff boundaries?
So-
to where that it needs to be done? Because I feel like there has been some unclear steps on staff if they actually have to enter it or not. And
Okay.
as a family who has used the system, I have been in meetings where administrators, not sitting here today, have not inputted it into the system because they didn't feel that it needed to be. And I was like, wait a second, I wrote the policy. Like, it should be inputted, and it should have been inputted before we sat here at this meeting.
Okay, so I will
So
say.
I would like to make sure that that is proceduralized the way that we intended to make the policy, and if it can't be, come to us so we can make sure that we tighten up the policy so that it can be, because that was our intent.
So I will say what we do in terms of the process of the handbook is we make the edits we feel need to be in there.
Right.
Then we send it to legal counsel for vetting before it's finalized. So we will look at that and add it to our updates. And then if there's any concerns, true legal counsel will come back and let the committee know what needs to be changed.
And then I guess I would ask that I know that it is up to the building principals to decide who investigates these bullying incidences and harassments. So it's different individuals in every building, but I feel like all the individuals that are doing the investigating should be brought in for professional development at a table together so that every school in all 3 districts have the same understanding of this report comes in, the student verbally told me, so that means I'm going to input it myself. I'm not going to say I'm not going to input it because it should have been another staff member that should have inputted it. It should be clear and concise on if it's a verbal thing from another staff member, then tell that staff member to input it. If it's a verbal thing from a student and the student doesn't have the capacity to enter it, then that staff member that's hearing it should enter it. And if it falls on the investigator to enter it, then let it fall on the investigator. However you proceduralize that. But have it the same so that when a family goes to place a bullying report, they know what's going to happen. They know how it's proceduralized. It's not one way for Crocker, one way for Pelham, one way for the middle school, one way for the high school, that it is the same.
Would it help, would it help in your vantage point if very similarly how we have identified a Title IX coordinator or a director of HR as a point of contact, we also identify for each school who the specific investigators are?
If they're willing to do the work, yes.
Okay.
But you have people in those roles now that are not willing to do the work. I apologize, but I'll be
Please don't.
vocal.
We'll
I have a
work on it.
couple more points. No, I think that's all. Never mind.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. I have Deb and then Tim, and then I would like us to be able to, we have some policies we should talk about, so I would like us to be able to move on to that, so we make sure we have time to do that tonight. Deb?
So just talking about the overall conversation, well, okay, now I said that, and I'm going to say something very specific. Can you, yeah, so I'm overstepping here, but I'm going to ask and see if you can reframe it in a way that doesn't make it overstepping. The process of granting professional teacher status is a process. Can you commit to following that process as it is normally done instead of, say, making exceptions?
Yes.
Thank
and,
you.
And I will say that because as everyone knows, I'm learning the processes, so I've been following whatever the processes are supposed to be, not what individuals want it to be. I have had individuals ask me to grant status, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. That's not happening. That's one of the issues with waivers, right? Like the only reason I would even grant a waiver to someone is if you've shown significant progress towards licensure, because when I submit that waiver letter, my license number is on the bottom of that letter. So I'm not putting my license on someone who's just sitting there and not making progress. So yes, I can commit to following the actual process.
Okay, so waiver is different than the professional teaching.
Yes, it is. And
Okay.
Jen walked me through it, and we do it.
Very good. Another couple of issues. So this is something that we need to work on together and continually. And, you know, in going through the superintendent evaluation process last month, it occurred to me that we could build a system, subcommittee, that allows the aggregate data to be collected throughout the year as we're developing the goals. We could make this a goal. We could, alongside the goal, like talk about what the measurable parts of that goal are and update them during these updates so that by the time we hit June, we're not trying to get you to pull together all of your artifacts on the day of graduation. How about that?
Sounds great.
Okay, so let's just make this, well, I mean, talk about making this a goal, talking about making the goals measurable, and talk about making it a continuous process. So by the time we get to the end of the process, it's all lined up together.
That sounds like a good idea for future agenda planning.
Yeah, okay, that's all I got for that.
Tim? Final comments?
Thank you again. So I was wondering, when Bridget was mentioning metrics, I thought, you know, and also when William was describing BRIM and the challenge of getting people to use it, right? BRIM serves the purpose of getting people affected or those who are close to them to report on incidents that have occurred. But one thing I heard from public comment tonight, and one thing that's always an issue, is the overall feeling of safety that the student body has. And so I was wondering if there is any opinion collection or feedback collection from students on, this is kind of a school climate question, I guess, on the topic of how safe do they feel. And could that be a useful source of data to consider as we continue to work on this, that tries to capture the sense of safety experienced by the whole student body, in addition to reports that come through BRIM?
I feel like any data can be actionable. It depends on how we pose the questions, what we look at, what data we collect. So I think we would just have to refine and determine at what points, what do we want to capture, what do we want to specifically ask the students, and then how granular we want to get, because I think that some of it, being mindful of the fact that some of it we want to capture in generic questions, but I also would want to create an opportunity for focus groups to hear directly. Like sometimes you could get the overarching picture, but then you want to get into specific of what are we talking about. So I think data is I'm open to data. I just need to figure out how do we capture it best, and how do we make sure we have the majority of the student voices heard.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ortiz.
Thank you.
So our next item is to assign regional representatives to the Joint Policy Subcommittee. Deb reached out and let me know she was going to step down from that committee. So as chair, I can assign someone. So I'm going to assign William back to that committee because now Jenny is the Pelham rep. So now Anna and William will be our regional representatives on the Joint Policy Subcommittee.
So can you just run the complete membership, Anna and William for the region?
For the region.
Jenny for Pelham.
Jenny for Pelham and
Jennifer.
Jennifer, question mark, from Amherst? Okay.
That's right.
Just 4?
Yeah.
I didn't think there were 5. Were there
That's how.
Nope,
we voted
4.
it.
No.
Okay. And never mind.
Okay.
Could
Yep.
we expand it to 5? Or is that not possible?
I think we start to run into the risk of having quorums even if people aren't representing that committee. We start to have potential quorum issues.
You could put Leverett on it.
But Leverett, it's not the school, it's not the it's Amherst and Pelham are there because the region, oh my gosh. The policies at the region are developed and they follow through to the elementary of districts of Pelham and Amherst. That's why it's a joint committee. So because Leverett has its own independent school committee that we don't have anything to do with their policies, they get to write their own. For the elementary, then that's why it is divided the way it is.
Thank you, I accept the.
Oh yeah, excellent, great. No choices for you, you must do it. Jennifer.
I mean, I think we could make it a 5-member committee as long as it doesn't include quorum of any single committee. I think we could. We do run the risk, but we'll just have to make sure that the 5 are not all members of the region, which I think, and that there aren't 3 Amherst people and that there aren't 3 Pelham people. I think we could.
We probably could, but I feel like that's probably not a tonight decision.
So I was confused a moment ago. So
Yep, go ahead,
Mm-hmm.
you
Tim.
were saying that Leverett is not on it because Leverett has a separate elementary school.
It's not that you are not on it, Tim. It's that you as a Leverett rep could be on it. You as the regional rep from Leverett could be
Yes.
on it. We weren't sure what you meant when you said Leverett could be on it. You didn't mean Leverett Elementary. You meant you as a Leverett rep for the region could be on it. That's.
Yes.
But
the way
yeah,
the
that would
joint
be okay.
the way the joint policy committee is organized is there is one representative from the Pelham Elementary School Committee, there is one representative from the Amherst Elementary School Committee, and there are 2 from the Regional School Committee. So it happens right now that our regional representatives are from Shutesbury and Pelham, but they just happen to live in those towns. They are there representing the regional school committee in those discussions.
Yeah, sorry,
when-
I guess I was unclear before. I wasn't saying Leverett should be on it. I was saying could be the 5th if we were talking about creating a 5th. I was confused when you responded the way you did.
Gotcha.
Because-
I apologize.
Because we have a representative from Shutesbury on the subcommittee. That's what I was confused about.
Yes, she is.
Just happened to be
She
from
just
Shutesbury.
happens to live there.
Just happened to be there.
Okay.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Yes.
I've appreciated my time on the policy committee. I think we've done good work. And yes, ma'am.
As a person who just joined and was supposed to be on for a long time, and Jen and I had this discussion as we were thinking about it, we actually agree with the fact that UW should stay on the policy committee. I know many times individuals don't always understand the perspective where you come from, and I'm going to say me, I don't always understand, but when I get there with you, I gather where the intention, where the initial thought process was. And I also know that in your brain, you are trying to kind of process a lot all at the same time with the intention of keeping children safe and at the forefront. I think just from the initial conversation that we had in our meeting this week in preparation for this meeting and with the work that needs to be done to move forward for this district, I would ask personally as a superintendent if you would reconsider before you make that statement and actually stick on as in the joint policy committee and support them in their work. And William did not ask me to say that. Neither did Jennifer. Or Anna.
Okay, so I am the first to admit that I don't get there in a straight line. It's not how I've ever been able to do it, and I thank all of you for putting up with my ramblings. I would love to stay on the joint policy subcommittee, but we have an administrative issue, so the reason I stepped back was to make sure that our chair can resume his very important role because it's all in his head. I would love to participate, but I think maybe we can talk about it at the next school committee meeting. I mean, I don't know. I'm just stepping down to make space for somebody whose role is more critical.
I'll put that down in future agenda planning.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
And please come to every meeting. Because the public is also welcome.
I will come as a public member. Thank you for the invitation.
All right. Okay. Now, we on our list is to consider policies for revision, which is listed as that, so we could have a broad discussion for when I posted the meeting. I didn't want to limit us to any particular policies. So since then, the policy subcommittee meeting has met and provided a first read for policy AA, policy subcommittee. Would one of you like to take it?
I'm happy to take the lead on this. I sadly have a dead computer. And
no.
like zero, it has like, it won't even find an internet connection. It says there's like no internet at all.
I've given her a
Yeah. So, this is a policy that William drafted, and then we edited in subcommittee, and we uploaded it to like Google Docs to try to make sure that it was viewable for all of us to look at it. This is a first draft. This is not a final document. We are bringing this to the full committee with open minds and fully willing to accept any edit suggestions. Our intent with this document, this new policy, and there is no current policy that covers what we're trying to cover, so we gave it a whole new name, Policy ACAA, because there is no current policy ACAA in either our documentation or in MASC's reference policy manual, so we felt safe in naming it ACAA, that it wouldn't have any overlap. So that was our rationale. The policy ACA is affirming our commitment to identity-affirming school culture and staff accountability. And it sets out a policy that demands an accepting environment and demands accountability for those who do not provide an accepting environment. And so,
We're trying to get it uploaded.
Working on it.
We looked at, as I was not on the policy team at the time, the other day.
Right.
So I proposed this as a school committee member. But we looked through a lot of policies, and it's hard to find policies to protect students from staff across the nation. There's just not, it's not there. And I guess it's the understood that staff do the right thing, right? So we're really trying to implement this as the best we can to protect the students. It's new territory, it's a new policy, it's a new thought on it.
Yeah, so we looked at a sample, an example from Berkeley School District that put out a policy around the protection of transgender students. We looked at a policy from
It was one from Glisson.
Chicago?
And then one from Chicago. And then I consulted with HRC, the Human Rights Campaign that's doing the Welcoming Schools. And so it was kind of a collaboration through all of those individuals to kind of come up with this.
Okay, so we started out with some basic definitions, because there are, occasionally, people don't fully understand what the definition of certain terms are, so we started, oh yes, we got it, with basic terms like gender identity, transgender, gender expression, gender nonconforming, dead naming, gender pronouns, misgendering. And I personally felt that including misgendering as a definition was really important because I feel like there are people who don't fully understand what misgendering really is and the importance of it. So if we are missing definitions that you think are poorly understood and need specific definitions so that everybody knows what we're talking about when we're saying that particular word, please speak up.
Yeah, or you can email.
Or email
Email
us.
the region. And this is on board docs. If you look under the agenda, this has been attached. So if you wanted to see it after this meeting, it is attached on board docs under the agenda, under this item.
And then LGBTQIA plus is also on that list. Although I don't know that it's critical to have that one defined. I think most people understand it, but
It doesn't hurt.
it doesn't hurt.
And then the policy starts right where it says it is the right.
So, I don't feel like I need to read it out loud. I think, hopefully some of us have had a chance to read it
Yeah.
before the meeting. But what we really wanted to do is state within this document that misgendering individuals, using dead names, using derogatory remarks concerning sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, whenever in a school environment, whether that be at the school, whether it be over social media, whether it be on a school trip, especially by a staff member, is considered bullying and is considered conduct unbecoming. And this conduct unbecoming, as we understand it, is grounds for disciplinary action up to and including dismissal. So we just wanted to make it very clear that this is the expectation of all staff members, and that any violation of these expectations is inexcusable.
And at the very end of the paragraph, we added, even in cases where sorry.
Right.
Right there, it says, even in cases where Title IX thresholds are not met. So we just wanted to be clear that even if a Title IX threshold is not made clear, we still have the ability for HR to do what they need to do.
Especially as Title IX definitions are changing.
Correct.
Scroll more.
Yeah. We put in there about professional development as that next paragraph. And then if a staff member is found to have demonstrated discriminatory or identifying harm behavior towards a child, families have the right to issue a written no contact directive to building principals for their child and other children in the household. So that is giving the ability that if a staff member has been found to have done something, then families are able to step up and say that they want to no contact with that staff member for their family. So that is a totally new procedure that we did converse with HR, and the superintendent, and they are behind these. So it can open up a huge can of worms for them, but they're ready to take the work on and do the hard work that they talked about. I think that's.
Any edits, comments? Yep.
Good job, that was fast. I fully support the goals of this. I do have some questions. So I gather this has not yet been reviewed by an attorney, but it will have to be.
It was reviewed by HR and Dr. Z, and we were all on the same table doing this together.
Right, but at
It
some
has
point.
not gone to legal.
And that will,
But
'cause that
things
has
don't
to
have to necessarily, well,
No?
we do get to write our own policy. That is our lane.
Yeah.
We
Wise
hope
to
that we
make
write.
sure we're not.
We hope we write legal policy, but it
Yes.
is our lane to write the policy that we want to write.
Yes, of course, yes. So a question and then a suggestion. This, as I read it, outlines expectations for how staff address students or talk to or about students. Great. Can it not also apply to how staff interact with each other? Dead naming, I mean, I
We did
didn't
talk about
get the sense that that was at all in here.
It does. Go up and read in order.
Any staff member right there.
Right.
No, it says individual, it doesn't specify
Can you
students.
keep going up?
I will try and get to the
Okay, I would just,
Oh, yeah, that second, oh, yeah.
Yeah, any staff member who engages in misgendering of individuals, use of dead names. So right there, it took out students and it talks about anyone.
So that's for staff and staff.
okay, good. I understand wanting to make the expectations so crystal clear that violating the policy is grounds for discipline, up to and including, termination or whatever. But I do hope that we can extend or encourage a growth mindset for adults as well as children. And I don't know that the first time somebody slips up, because for all us people with older brains, it takes a while. It can take a while. So I just hope that we can encourage or require that a person be retrained, that the person undergo more professional development or maybe some coaching before dropping the,
I think that's not included because that's my purview. So the policy would be set forth, and then from that policy, we would create the procedural guidelines around how that rolls out in terms of conduct unbecoming. And a lot of it, that's why it says prescribed to disciplinary procedures up to, because it depends on how egregious. It depends on the number of time. It depends on, for an individual, is it your first time? Are you remorseful? Did you apologize? Like, there's so many instances that come forth that wouldn't be outlined in the policy because the policy sets the framework, and then we take that back and create the procedural guidelines around it.
Deb?
So one of the things that we recognized when we developed this is that in the conversation, we were trying to pack a lot into it, and we realized that this is a general policy. It falls under the A, whatever A means for policies. And there, as a policy committee, whether or not I'm on it, I would recommend that the next step would be to take a really good look at MASC's guidance on personnel, because they have 32 policies that we could build off of or create our own. If you look at our own, ours are pretty minimal, and maybe it's time to rethink that a little bit. I mean, some of them are like boilerplate about fingerprinting and weapons in the workplace. So of the 6, I would say there's not enough in there to allow the superintendent to do what needs to be done. There's not enough structure for the policies to allow the kind of progressive discipline that I think needs to take place and prevent the gaps, to close the gaps as you're seeing. So one of them, just the very first one that is just a general one, is GBEB, and it just says, it's very simple, it's 3 sentences. 3 sentences, can I read them, or should that?
You can read them.
Okay. All staff members have a responsibility to familiarize themselves with and abide by the laws and regulations of the state as these affect their work, the policies of the school committee, and the procedures designed to implement them. In the area of personal conduct, the committee expects that teachers and others will conduct themselves in a manner that not only reflects credit to the school district, I don't know what reflects credit means, this is, yeah, but also sets forth a model worthy of emulation by students, and all staff members will be expected to carry out their assigned responsibilities with conscientious concern. So I think
Was that GBEB from MASC?
GBEB as in boy, no D's.
From AMASC, okay.
From A, so just.
Trying to collect this.
Yeah, so just really kind of the next step, I think, should be personnel and whatever that involves, but that one jumped out at me as one we might be able to also fast track.
Thank you.
Thank you.
William?
I was just going to comment on what Sarah said. So I spoke outside. I don't know if everyone heard that, so I'm going to quickly. As a person that is queer, I know what it's like growing up feeling different. I want to speak directly to the importance of affirming our transgendered and non-binary students. This is not about politics, it's not about it's about safety, well-being, and basic human dignity. We know from well-established research that trans and non-binary youth face significantly higher rates of depression and suicide, but here's the critical part. When their names and pronouns are respected, when they are affirmed, those risks drop dramatically. Using a student's correct name and pronouns in school, at home, and in community can cut suicide risk by nearly 30%. Just one supportive adult in a young person's life can reduce the chance of a suicide attempt by a third. On the flip side, misgendering is not just disrespectful, it's dangerous. Studies show that over 70% of transgendered youth who are consistently misgendered have attempted suicide. That is staggering. So when someone refuses to use the student correct pronouns, what they're really saying is, I'm okay with contributing to a reality where that child might not live. Misgendering and refusal to correct pronouns is harassment. Obviously, our current policies do not draw that connection clearly enough, and that must change. We need to explicitly define misgendering as a form of discriminatory harassment, because that is what it is. Not calling by someone their chosen name or pronoun isn't just a slip up. It's a repeated harmful act that can have deadly consequences. So I can't sit here and listen to someone say it's okay if people slip up. I know you have to give grace, and I understand that, but grace is enough. That is why we are here, I feel like, because we allowed people to say, I'm sorry, I'm trying. When kids were wearing pronouns on their heads, and staff members cannot read those pronouns from their heads, and they're able to just say, I'm sorry, I'm old, it takes me a while, I'm done with that. That's why this policy is important, because we can give them a second chance, and I want them to be able to proceduralize that. But it cannot be an excuse. It cannot be an excuse for a kid to kill themselves because we, as adults, say, sorry, we're slipping up. These relationships of these adults and these children are new. If I had a child that was trans and my great aunt was around them and she's always called them a she and now they're a he, it might take them time because they've built a relationship with a child that was a different sex than they're now portraying. This is a teacher that most likely has never interacted with this child. So if they want to be called Sally or Bob, they should be able to be called the name they want. I don't understand how you have to learn that. When that child comes in, this is their pronoun. It doesn't matter what their body looks like. You didn't know them before, most likely. You know them now. So I don't understand how it can be difficult, and I don't want us to hide behind that because kids are still dying. So I'm done. I'm not done with y'all.
Yeah.
I'm done talking, sorry.
Thank you.
just, I feel like that was directed at me, so I
It
want to
nodded you at
emphasize,
feelings.
okay, that I totally support this. I just, and I think Dr. Z agreed that each situation needs to be examined. Of course, we can't excuse, somebody has to show they're really trying and made progress, because it is hurtful, absolutely.
I have Irv, Jennifer, and Tim.
So I looked at all of this, and this definitely should have a legal review. And William, it's fine to say, well, we can write our policy, but, and we do have that right. However, if it's not legally reviewed and the policy falls outside of legal guidelines, then all we're doing is setting ourselves up for the same thing that just occurred. You know, so yes, put this under legal review for us so that we can have that for our own edification. And then if we decide to ignore that, then it's on us. But at least let's have it.
Thank you, Irv.
Jennifer.
So I know I was involved in writing and editing this, but looking at it now, I have some comments. So we're implementing this, or we're going to implement this new policy now, and it's going to be new, and and that's fine. But I'm looking at this as a policy that's going to be around in years to come. So I feel like removing some of the time words. So for example, right here, in order to build a culture, whatever, the district shall immediately implement. I think we can just say the district shall implement, and we expect it to be immediate. I'm making the changes in the Google Doc so we can do it. The next one is the district shall commit to, the district shall integrate these practices into the school culture. Remove commit to a multi-year effort, because it already says that the superintendent's going to let us know about the status. And then the last thing is, in the if a staff member paragraph, should we replace families with caregivers to be consistent with other policies?
Yes, thank you.
Those are my, and then the last thing is, the superintendent will provide regular updates to the school committee regarding metrics to this policy. I made those changes in the Google Doc.
I mean,
Because
families,
it's
families is a pretty broad term, and it doesn't necessarily specifically mean parents and guardians.
I was gonna say that I actually like caregiver.
Okay.
Because, but I also hear your concern in terms of families. And let me tell you from the operational standpoint. So if families were there, I would proceduralize it as caregiver, because really, honestly and truly, in the state of Massachusetts, the caregiver, not specifically, whoever's identified, has the right to make the educational decisions for that child. And so we would hope that we're abiding by the person who's responsible for the child's wishes. Families could get gray and messy because there's family issues. So however we word it, we need to word it in a way that I do agree operationalizes. And maybe again, if we're gonna do legal review, we allow the attorney to give us the best suggestion.
Thank you. Tim, final comment?
Seconding what Jennifer said, and Jennifer, I don't know if you mentioned this time word, but, you know, the policy says annually for training. Personally, I think annual is maybe not enough, so it could say at least annually. And I second what Irv said, and I think what Dr. Z just said. You know, the situation with the arbitration decision that has been the substance and spirit of this meeting was a result of cutting corners and, you know, not following procedures and so on and so forth. So really, like, running this past legal and putting a lot of attention towards what this policy should be, acknowledging that you've already put a lot of attention into it. You've done research of other districts, you have consulted with Human Rights Campaign, and all of that is great. But still, we got to put it through more of its paces and be extremely rigorous about the policy that we decide to put into the policy book. So a review from legal, a really scrupulous review, from legal is necessary, and more discussion in public.
Thank you, Tim. Go ahead, Dr. Z.
The only suggestion I would make, annual in school speak is yearly. I wouldn't say year, you could say year, but I understand annual as in yearly in school speak. So the edit that I would say is the district shall annually implement professional development for all, or implement professional development for all staff focused on affirming LGBTQIA+ students annually. And one of the things that the school committee, as per the law and regulations in your roles, are supposed to do is approve our annual PD plan for the districts, which we'll be bringing forward. So it also falls back to, if you don't see it on the PD plan or something that speaks to that topic on the PD plan as a school committee, asking back for that. So, you could say as represented on the professional development plan of the district.
Thank you. No, I have Bridget had one more.
So very small thing for edit at the bottom of the first page. It says, regardless of gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation, and something about that word just sits a little funny with me right there, like, could it be inclusive of all gender identities, gender expressions, and sexual orientation? And then my other comment on this is, for policy, our policy guidelines are that we have to have a first and a second read. So then I would just say, like, the very next school committee agenda, so this can be in place for the school year.
I was going to comment on that for future agenda planning, to ask the chair to reach out to the other two chairs, because I think it has to be, does this have to be read for all three policies, or just, that was my clarifying question for future agenda? Okay, so hint to the other chairs who are probably listening, we need a joint meeting for at least first and second reads, so we can get there.
Okay. Thank you, policy subcommittees, for gathering and working so quickly to bring this forward. I'm super appreciative.
And member of the public.
And members of the public. Okay, I'm going to take that down. Maybe, okay, here we go. All right. Oh, blank screen. Thank you. Okay, so next up is our future agenda planning. So topics I have gathered since we have been sitting here are for a second read of ACAA once this goes to legal, to bring to the, are you suggesting it goes to the policy subcommittee, GBEB?
Yes.
Okay, for GBB to go to the policy subcommittee, and for a joint meeting to discuss the policy subcommittee to have up to 5 people on it. Dr. Z, you had?
I have a couple of things that I wrote down since sitting here.
Ready.
Okay. A request for an early HR update and presentation on our current systems and things that are being implemented. I have here, well, those are standing updates for me. I also have, which Deb brought forth, and I would like to suggest, I don't know how it could be, that it be a joint subcommittee for the superintendent's evaluation to develop the goals and talk about upcoming processes, because it's not just the region, all 3 committees evaluate. So kind of a working subcommittee around the superintendent's evaluation. And to bring forth the scheduling changes that will come forward due to the PRS complaints. And I also like to kind of bring forward to the committee kind of like a, since we love data so much, the analytics around where the larger percentages of our PRS complaints fall, what are some things that we need to work on, because that's also going to bring us into compliance.
Okay. Oh boy. All right, we're just gonna go this way, and I'm gonna get a new sheet of paper.
Okay, so
William.
I was gonna say, school improvement plans, student handbook, staff handbook.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hold on, I can't.
Okay,
write.
sorry. So that was school improvement plans, student handbook, staff handbook. Brim update. And then as part of the HR update that might be ongoing, evaluation for staff percentages of compliance to be included in her HR.
Compliance with what?
Say that
Being
again?
evaluated, so
Oh, the,
evaluation for staff, percentage of completion
got it.
by building.
You got it.
Thank
There.
I emailed this earlier, and it'll, will be overtaken by events soon, but I've been very concerned about all the news around the federal funding, and I guess no news is good news, but I would love an update from the superintendent or finance director about, should we be concerned that some funding for any one or more programs, or just generally for the coming year, may be withheld, because even if we get the funds eventually, if they're delayed, I imagine that would cause huge headaches for us.
Chaos?
Yes.
Anna, what's your, I'm just gonna go all the way down, so Anna, did you have anything?
I'll just add to Sarah's, with the financial implications of the arbitration as well, how that hits our budget.
Okay. Irv, did you have your hand up?
No, I did not.
Deb?
I hear we have a really cool data dashboard that might help us with framing those goals in a measurable, ongoing way. So I think the two pieces fit together nicely.
Bridget?
So I concur with William, of wanting to see that HR data and the building specific and all those pieces, so. But the other thing about, because I sent an email, but I would say I listened to Amherst Town Council last night, and the president said her top priority is working on the school committee's budget, and I don't think we've yet had a discussion amongst ourselves of what's most important for us in terms of what data we'd like to see, how we'd like the conversation framed, et cetera. And so while the 4 towns and everyone else are meeting on it, I think we have to sooner rather than later, because we can't do any of this good work without having the funding.
I don't have agenda topics, but I have logistical and scheduling questions. Are you thinking, Sarah Beth, that we would have another meeting in July or August? Not in July, but maybe in August? And I know it's gonna be there's a joint topic that the chairs can talk about, but just for everyone and for planning and for schedules, when might our next meeting be? And then also, what is the status of retreat planning? Which again, I know is a chair's thing, but do you have
Yep.
thoughts?
No, that's totally fine. Hold on, let me pull up a calendar so I can see it. Okay, so I think we're out of July, right? We are looking, today's the 22nd, but there's, we have work we have to do before we can come back and have more conversation about it, right? So we're looking at August. I will work with the superintendent. I know there are vacations for people that are happening. I will be as quick to respond so everyone can schedule. I have reached out to MASC about planning a retreat and having them come to do, let me see if I can find the email I sent them. Asking for them if they could schedule a workshop for our retreat sometime in August to help our committee focus on our roles and responsibility, with a focus on best practices for the committees to work together and for working to support our superintendent. So I got a response that says, "We have received your email." So I will follow up again with them and try to work to schedule something, and again, let the committee know as quickly as I have more information. So, yes, that is where, did I answer all of your questions? Okay. Tim, did you have anything? Go all the way around? Nothing. Great. Dr. Z, did you already give me your list? I think so.
Yeah,
Right.
And I get the joy of planning with you, so if I give an additional
This
list,
is true.
I'll put it together.
Okay. So I think that is all of the items we have today. I want to say again, thank you to everybody who came and showed up for our students and that was so brave to speak, because I know it is really hard. And so thank you all very much again, and I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, Jennifer.
Yes.
Bridget.
Yes.
Deb.
Can I say something first? Just wanted to thank Chris.
Yes.
And yes.
Yes.
Chris.
Chris.
Yes, thank you very much to everybody for all of your support today. Now?
Yes.
I also,
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
William?
Yes.
Sarah Beth, yes. And Tim?
yes.
Thank you. We are adjourned.